Hello and welcome to the Inspiring Stories podcast. Here we interview authors and soon-to-be authors to find out more about what inspired them to write their books and about the inspiring stories within their books and the hopes of inspiring others to write and share their own stories. I am Karen Light of Studio Light Illustration, where we transform visions to visuals on our quest to help create a more human world through the magic of storytelling. You can find out more at KarenLight.com for now and soon at StudioLightIllustration.com. We also want to give a quick shout out to our friends and sponsors at Fig Factor Media. Fig Factor Media is an international publishing company with heart, specializing in self-development, anthologies, business, and children's books that bring messages of hope, inspiration, and encouragement into the world. Find out more at figfactormedia.com. All links will be in the description of this episode. Today I am here with Karen Vasquez O'Donnell. She is a wife, mother, author, and motivational speaker who is passionate about exploring, discovering, and learning. Nothing brings her greater joy than traveling with her family and learning about different cultures and ways of life. Karen is a native of El Salvador who had humble beginnings and a very interesting childhood. She enjoys thrill-seeking activities that leave her physically exhausted, but emotionally and spiritually recharged. Welcome to the show, Karen. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing great. Happy to be with you, chatting, and thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I had so much fun working with you on your Pepe and Paco project. And you have such great stories and reasons for even writing that book and vision for it. So I was looking forward to this conversation today. Great. So let's just jump in. Briefly, what do you want people to know about your book? What is this about?
So the book is inspired by my children, Thomas and Samuel, or I often call them my little monkeys. Mm-hmm. We love to travel and discover places, and obviously we have that privilege to be able to do that, and in a way to leave them just how we do like in a photo album, to leave them something so they can reference the things that we've done, because obviously some of the things they might not remember or vaguely remember because they were either so little. And one of the adventures we've done is to a cross-country trip from California to Pennsylvania. We used to live in Pennsylvania, so we stopped and visited a lot of iconic historical places. And for me, I enjoy learning that way. So just to leave them a legacy or something to refer back to that they can remember. I want others to be inspired to visit these places, and those who are not able to at least know more about it, get inspired, imagine, dream of one day visiting these places, because you never know.
Yeah. I remember you telling me that you dreamt of visiting some of these places. You want to tell me a little bit about that?
Yes. So I grew up in El Salvador and in a small village, and I never thought of even, turning 16 and getting my driver's license, let alone fly or visit other countries. So, TV influences you a lot. Things that you see, read, pictures, get you excited. At least for me, I've always been a very curious person. And on TV, for example, on the first of every year, we have the Rose Parade, and it was televised in El Salvador. And I always wonder, where do they do this? I'm just curious to know. And obviously that curiosity leads to research. And then I'm like researching, where is this happen? And it's in Pasadena, California. And so you start creating, especially when you're a kid, you start creating these images or imagining what is it like. So always was curious. I would see postcards about the US and places that I would want to visit, like the Golden Gate Bridge. So that also is inspiring. You hear, see in the movies too. Alcatraz, the Golden Gate Bridge, those are very popular, iconic places that are usually featured in movies. So I'm sure I'm not the only one out there. And to get the kids inspired to learn about these are real places full of history.
Mm-hmm. So it's also a book then about not just that you went to these places, but the stories of the places you went to then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because you find out so many things that are so interesting that you never even thought of, you know?
Yeah.
Um, like the Golden Gate Bridge, for example, there was a big controversy about what color it should be painted. And, you know, they wanted it to be yellow and black. It would look like a bumblebee, you know, and people might say, oh, that would look like an eyesore. But the reasoning behind it was for safety reasons. The Coast Guard wanted it to be visible to ships coming into the bay because it gets really foggy at times. So that to me is absolutely intriguing, interesting to learn of what it takes or what it took for these iconic places to be or become if they're not, you know, if they don't exist naturally in nature, man-made or created. You know, there's always a backstory, and I want to know why or how did it become, you know? It's intriguing to me.
Yeah, so the book will have some of those facts in there as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, something, it's a fun way, I feel, to strike that curiosity to know more. And then continue on to do a little research on your own. And it's primarily it's a picture book, so it's for like kindergartens to third grade age. And I mean, even parents, if you know, when we're reading to our children, you know, my dream is that it will inspire. Oh, sounds really interesting and neat. You know, do some research maybe, and then eventually take a summer trip, family trip, you know, vacation. That's what I would love it to become, because I know how many great memories we've made as a family because of it. You know?
So while you were traveling as a family, did you have all these places sort of plotted out, or how did you go about deciding which ones you were going to?
Well, we had the major places, right? We definitely knew we wanted to start out at the San Diego Zoo, because it's very famous for the pandas, you know, and then we went from there. We had major ones that we wanted to see, like the Golden Gate Bridge, drive on the Pacific Coast Highway, Big Sur, but there were many things that you just encounter as you went that route. And we were driving a big RV, so some places, you know, with the GPS, you couldn't access, or it would take us other roads. So it's not exactly plotted, but we knew we had to hit major places like Devil's Tower, Old Faithful, the Yellowstone National Park, Mount Rushmore. And so we had the major ones that we wanted to see, and there were others in between that came just by chance. Like in Idaho, for example, we were just driving, and all of a sudden the landscape changed, and it was like, it looked like we were inside a volcano, and we're like, where are we? What is this? And we get out, we start doing research, and it's actually Craters of the Moon, which is a national monument and preserve. It was interesting because we came across it just by chance, and it's obviously my kids loved it. We were all in awe because, you know, I've never heard of it before.
I hadn't either before your book. I had no idea. I was like, well, this is really interesting, and it made me look up all these pictures online. Maybe I'll make a trip, you know?
That's exactly what I wanted. I want this book to be, because you can't possibly, you know, that it would become an encyclopedia. You can't possibly put all these things in there, but we're captivated by images, children especially. And you did such a great job bringing all these ideas and mental images I had, and obviously influenced by what we had seen. And to be able to tell you those things, and you like seeing them come to life was like, It was so exciting.
It was a lot of fun, yeah. I learned a lot about my own country doing it. I was like, wow.
It's really, and that's what I love, because again, it awakens curiosity. And
Yes.
curiosity is not always bad. It's good. It's just wanting to know more, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious now, like, you do a lot of things. You know, you have your kids, you have your family, you have your own work. So how did this project become a reality for you? How did you manage to make that happen in your busy life?
Well, you know, there are certain ideas, I think we all have them, that kind of nag in our, like they're in our head, and we all have stories to tell. And, you know, for me, it's always seeing my children grow up, and when you lay in bed with them to talk them in, and you either read them a story or are invited to come and read in their classrooms, and ideas start forming, and you start remembering certain things or events or that you did, and things always come up. So you're like, okay, I got to do this. And it was amazing because I met Jackie Camacho Reese and the Fig Factor Media Publishing.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously she helped me so much. She said, Karen, you can do this and it can happen, and I can help you. And it was amazing how fast. That's one thing I've learned is everything starts with an idea.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's an idea that intrigues you enough, it starts coming up in conversations and different things, just in traditional life, you know, going about your life. And what we do with those ideas, because those ideas become then dreams. If those nag you enough and keep coming up in your life, they kind of become goals and dreams. And the main thing is to make them a reality is to take action. You have to first start taking steps to making that a reality. And that's what happened after meeting Jackie. And, you know, she publishes many books. She has many books of her own, very successful, and sharing my ideas with her. Because when you travel, there's that saying that you become a storyteller, because so many things happen, and you know, one thing reminds you of another. So I was fortunate enough to meet Jackie and to start, you know, taking that first step into action, connecting me with you. And it was quite fast once that happened. We met you once. You got to meet Thomas and Samuel, who are Pepe and Paco from the book.
It was so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that idea of it nags you. So we get lots and lots of ideas, but the ones that nag you are really calling for some action.
Yes. And that's just what I have found, because you know, there's so many ideas that go through our heads, and but there are certain ones that don't leave you alone. Those are usually the ones you should pay attention to and just do some research. And what is it, you know? This book, not only that, is my upbringing and knowing that some of these places I dream of going, and my travels take me to very remote areas where I connect with these children who I used to be, you know, one of them, and I connect with them, and just being able to give them something like this to inspire their curiosity to know more, especially now with the internet, and things that seemed so far away are at least closer in terms of the ability to do research and have videos and documentaries. So my idea with Pepe and Paco is, you know, it began with just for my children, I thought, and then as I see and travel and visit schools, for example, you know, my dream is for every book we sell, we want to donate a book and bring it to these children so they can escape through their imagination, through your beautiful illustrations and colorful pictures, and you know, a little bit of the story.
Mm-hmm. I love how it grew. So sometimes I think what stops people is feeling like they need to know the whole, like how it's all going to go down and what the end thing is. but it seems to me from what I'm hearing, you just had this nagging idea and you opened your mouth and talked to somebody and you got curious and started researching, and it started as a simple thing, but now you're seeing how far it can spread. You can really share your story in so many ways.
Yeah, and that's I don't know, it develops. What my advice to others would be is you don't most of the times you don't know exactly, you don't have it mapped out, you don't know where it's going to lead, and a lot of time that gives us fear. All of us, we all have, how is it going to turn out? Is it going to be perfect? Because it's such a journey and a process of it all. And you often hear of people writing books because it's therapeutic. It has its ups and downs of emotions, because although it can be fun, and also there is still a whole process, a project that you have to put together. So it's enjoyable at the end to see a finished product. And if you're able to help others, or leave a legacy, or just tell your story, we all have one, of whatever that may be, it's beautiful. It's amazing to see it come to life.
Yeah. And I think that's another really cool aspect of what you're saying, is that you just started with something that would be beautiful and joyful for you and your family. And now we are seeing ripple effects from starting with that simple thing. Like sometimes people don't start because they don't think it's important enough or a big enough idea, or, it's going to reach 5 million people or else it's not worth it. And this is kind of showing how starting with something that brings simple joy to the people around, most important to you and to yourself, has the effect much wider than that. So
yeah.
I would love to hear if you could share with listeners a little bit more about the projects that you're doing in other countries, and how you're getting a chance to share these stories, because I know you got some exciting ventures going on.
Yes, so we do different adventures through our company, Crazy Ventures. We provide business coaching services, and with that, we integrate some team building. And since we love to travel, to our clients, we offer that if they're interested. And if they are, we take them to places such as Peru. We've been to Machu Picchu, very iconic place, magical. So much to learn about the people, the culture. And when we do these adventures, we try to incorporate giving back to the communities that we visit. So we oftentimes are schools, and we visited a school in a very remote area in the Andes, and these children, their English is Spanish is their second language, because they're native, they have a native dialect first. So it's just so interesting to learn, to see how people live. There's so much respect. Land and nature is so sacred to them. And it's just beautiful to see their culture and learn about it and giving back. So when we visit these places, they're very remote, small schools, so usually in need of school supplies. And that's what we did. Our client was so kind, and we donated books, just school supplies that they were needed. We asked them, what is it that you need? And one of the things they were in most need is a one room schoolhouse. So it's one teacher and there was an assistant for the younger kids. And they needed, she said, ink for the printer, because they do have a printer, but the ink runs out and it's very expensive. So we got them ink and a bookshelf. And again, I said our clients were so kind, and we donated book bags and other supplies. The kids were just happy. We just interacted with them. They were happy to have new people visit, and that's where I see the possibility, say, with the book, often a book, you have them just in school, but for each child to have a book and to be able to go home with a book, you know, it's something pretty, like, I don't know, I can't describe it. I can imagine it myself because of, you know, being able to relate to these children, you know, to be able to just go and grab your own book and be able to escape by dreaming about these places that you only hear about or see, you know, on TV or movies.
I mean, that was always special for me and still is, you know, but that extra added layer of not taking it for granted that there are books that you can have, but it's extra special, you know, just to have a book that is yours.
Yeah, like your own book.
Yeah, I love that.
Like a little library, and you know, I think it's neat because even though we have, well, in these areas, they do have access to internet, but this is not as accessible as it is for us. So even though it's there, you know, it becomes just tales, or you just hear stories. But then to have an image, a colorful image, beautiful image that you create to go along with that, I think that, especially for children, the imagination.
Yeah. Well, and it's a story of a journey. So it really is questioning or asking them the question, where do they want to go? Like, what do they want to see? You know, not like, of course, places, but also just with life. Like, where do they want to go?
Yeah. And the thing is, you know, how limited it can be for a child, because how can they say where do they want to go if they never heard about a certain place?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for many of these children, it could be the first time they even hear about these places. You know, and many of these places that we did visit are in worldwide landmarks that, you know, they're in postcards and so on. But when you're in such remote areas like the Andes Mountains, you know, it might be the very first time that they see, you know, so being able to expand their imagination and their surroundings just by what they know is important, because how would they be able to tell us, I really want to go visit this place or learn more about it, if they never know it exists? Yeah.
Yes. Expanding their idea of what is possible. So in the creation process of this book, what would you say some of the challenges were?
The challenges for me, and they can vary from person to person, but for me, I tend to be, I care so much about it, and to the point where it can be OCD, I guess, looking for perfection, and it can slow the process down, and it has, but I want it, it means so much to me that, you know, it can delay the process, but you got to go at your own pace. Again, for me, this is, you know, it started out as a hobby. Yeah. It's an idea that's developing. So one of the challenges for me is that I'm being so meticulous about it, making sure everything is perfect. So I know the process has become slower, but it's satisfying. It's part of the journey, at least for me. Another one is always, I think we all have, and we can relate to, is fear. Yeah. How will it be accepted? You know, again, at the beginning, yay, I'm writing this, I'm doing this for my children. Yes. And then how it develops to, I want to spread it and bring it to everywhere in the world. Yeah. Everywhere it can reach, you know, it's a lot of pressure. So, you know, you always wonder, we're all human, how will it be received? And, you know, but it's all part of the journey. And I think just like anything else, things that you care about, that you mean well with, are not going to be that easy, you know? Yeah. And I think it's just all part of the journey. And at the end, it's going to be so gratifying and fulfilling to see other children enjoy it. So, you know, those are the challenges, at least for me, that have become, they can be different for others, but I think one of the major ones is fear. And a lot of times that's what keeps us from actually taking that first step to making that dream a reality. But if you overcome it, you end up learning a lot about yourself.
What do you think helped you overcome it? Or maybe you're still in that process because it's not quite out yet. It's not quite done.
Yeah, it's not quite done, but it's more exciting because we're in that exciting phase because we can interact. So like what helps me is my children, the support system that I have, seeing their excitement. And my husband even had a canvas printed out. He surprised me and had a canvas of it printed out for me, of the cover. And it's interesting because the last trip I took was to El Salvador, and I brought that canvas with, and just seeing the reaction, especially from children. There was this my friend's son who's 3, and I just showed it to him. I just took it out of the bag and showed it to him, and he'd go, wow. And the colors, I imagine really caught his eye, and he started pointing to it. So that's always more motivating, So the support system, seeing a reaction.
I really like what you said too about like, I recognize that maybe I have these like perfectionism tendencies with it, but I'm also going to be on my own time and just let it develop as I need it to develop. And I think that's a really important message for people to hear. Like so especially when you're in self-publishing world, like the only timeline is your timeline really. And you can let it develop as you need to, and as you feel comfortable, and as you overcome each fear as they come up. And as you do that, that's probably also helping it grow into more and more ideas too.
Yes. What I've noticed, it's part of the creative process. Like I said, it has started out as a hobby, so I have that the luxury to go about it on my own time, and it's so personal. I think I think for me, it's so personal. I think of my children. I think of what will intrigue in terms of, it's a picture book. So I'm very detailed about which fact am I going to put there that's going to captivate the children, my audience, It's going to make them want to, hey, wait a minute. What is that?
That's why I love, working with self-publishing authors. I think it's because these projects are passion projects for people, and like you get to be passionate together and create something, and it's really magical. And two passionate people come together with their creativity. It's really fun. So what do you see is next for you? Where are you going with all of this?
Well, before the children's book, before Pepe and Paco, which will be a book series. Before that, initially, my very first idea, which I even had the title for, was a book about my childhood stories and what I've learned from them. So as I am working now, I've actually took that first step and are going to start working on that second book, The Mango Tree and Me, which is just stories, my childhood stories. Again, that one, same idea. Is we all, when we become parents, or we can relate to it to our own parents, we hear those stories over and over again. And as children, we were like, oh, here they go again, same old story. But it becomes part of us. I think that's what helps us remember certain things in our childhood. Sometimes I look back and I wonder, it's a story from where I might have been too young to remember. And I think you create those ideas or those memories from just hearing those stories over and over again. If they happened, and if you hear it from someone over and over at times, especially our elders, our grandparents, is something interesting. You know, it marked their life, therefore they're telling it to you. And those are the stories that create traditions at times that get passed down through generations. So being that I had such a different childhood than my children, you know, having to go fetch water because I didn't have the luxury of just turning on the faucet or the toilet, you know, I had an outhouse that I helped build, you know, my brother, everybody helped build our own home. We all had some play in it. So when I tell the stories to my children, they're captivated. They're like, really? That's so different. So I'm thinking, again, what can I leave them with that they can reference from my point of view and what I learned from these things, you know?
Yeah.
So I have began working on that second book. It's very early on. Again, it's been in my head, and I'm just letting it out. And what I look back in hindsight, I see that when we have an idea that nags us enough,
yeah,
without knowing, we begin to do things that lead to that project. So with this book, again, with the second book, The Mango Tree and Me, also with that same idea.
Yeah.
To join and be able to connect with these children, to have a similar upbringing or childhood and what can be shared. And those children who have lived a very different life like my own, is to make them aware of how others live as well. So
it expands their horizons as well.
Yeah. So I'm working on that second book and
really
continue
interesting.
to.
It's like Pepe and Paco's kind of expanding the horizons of people who are living in more remote places, you know, but then the opposite is sort of happening with this book, where like children who aren't living in remote places are actually getting expanded by thinking about what it means to live in a remote place.
That's interesting. I didn't even think of it.
That's really cool.
And I think too is because of course I've talked to Jackie Camacho from PPP about it, and she's the one helping me, you know, bringing it to life. And she said it to me, I see this excitement in your eyes, and it's about just, you know, when it's inside you and you just want to share it.
Yeah.
And it's an idea that I've had for so long. I think that process, being that I took action on the Pepe and Paco book first. And I said to her, she's like, so this is like the prequel to Pepe and Paco. And it is, because without those stories and becoming who I am today, there wouldn't be that Pepe and Paco. So it's interesting when you're working on creative projects like this, especially so personal.
Yeah.
Where they lead, or they themselves guide you to the steps. It starts evolving on its own as you begin working on them.
Yeah, I always feel like when I'm making art that it's a conversation, and it's a conversation between me and what I'm making, and it's got to talk to me as much as I talk to it, or it feels forced, or it's not an enjoyable process. You don't get to experience like the magic of the unknown, like something you never expect to have happen, show up on your page or look different or better usually than you thought it was going to, because you let it have the conversation with you instead of like forcing it to become something. So yeah, creativity is not a linear process usually.
I love how you describe it, because it is true.
Yeah.
You know, it is true. And I think, I think, and like with your work, you are bringing these ideas to life, inspiring others also. So it's just an interesting experience, you know, some that many people can relate to, I think.
Yeah, I think that many people could relate to, and I think even more people would like to. So before Pepe and Paco, did you do any writing?
Oh, I'm also part of the Today's Inspire Latina.
Uh-huh.
It's a book series of inspirational stories of women who have had, have overcome adversity.
Mhm.
And so I'm part of one of the contributing actors to Volume 4 of Today's Inspire Latina. And that, you know, it's amazing how it evolved because that project came along first,
Yeah.
knowing that I wanted to write a book. So meeting Jackie Camacho Reese from Fig Facta Media
Mhm.
allowed me to have access to that. It opened the door. It gave me an idea. I got to see what it was like
Yeah.
as an author, and then from then, taking a step to making my own personal books a reality with Pepe and Paco, and now with The Mango Tree and Me.
Mhm.
So with along those lines, continuing my passion to be able to motivate children and youth, especially, motivate everyone, but I have this connection, I guess, with children and youth who just seem to be inspired by my story or the way I grew up.
Mhm. Yeah, so it sounds like what I hear you saying too is that you just started, like somebody gave you an opportunity to write and you just started to do it. And it's not like you didn't grow up like, I'm going to be a writer. It doesn't have to be about that. It's just that we all have stories and taking the opportunity to share it.
Yes. Yeah, I would say, take that chance, because it often leads to different things that you yourself has always dreamed about.
Mhm.
I think we attract that without even knowing about it. If we think about it enough, and who we surround ourselves with influences, your support system, your family, and allow yourself, don't let that fear stop you. So allow yourself to explore that, those ideas, and you never know where they lead.
I think that's a great place to wrap this up, is just giving yourself the permission to explore it.
Yeah.
Without any pressure, without any timeline, without any expectation. And that's sort of what Pepe and Paco is all about, that exploration. So it's really a great full circle wrap up there. Thank you so much, Karen. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you back here soon.